Welcome to Carpe Dime, a podcast about personal finance and everyday life. I'm Jamie Davidson.
And I'm Dusty Simmons from Financial Center First Credit Union. Thanks for spending your free time listening to us talk about how life and family affect us achieving our financial goals.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
It's a big day, Jamie.
It is?
Like you didn't know.
Oh, what is it?
Well, today is our 30th episode here at Carpe Dime, and we want to thank and recognize all of our listeners who just helped us achieve how many listens?
10,000.
I am completely blown away by this.
I'm told that's a big number. I don't know.
Well, it is for us,
It
right?
is for us, right? Yeah, we're just a little Carpe Dime show.
We were just Carpe Dime started out as our passion project to provide some real life perspective on personal finance from our credit union, and it's especially for Jamie and I, it's really grown into something bigger than we anticipated, and it's all because of those of you who are listening right now. So
That's right. You, Jane, and Joe, and obviously I don't know any of your names, but I figured that'd be funny, so you can laugh at me or say, there he goes again, rambling on. But yeah, when we started doing this a little over a year ago, it was a great idea, I thought, but at the same time, a little hesitant.
we didn't know how it was going to go.
No, I think we've gotten a little bit better than the first one.
We hope so. For those of you who've stuck with us a long time.
Yeah, so if you've been with us a long time, hopefully we've gotten better. If not, let us know. 30 in, over 10,000 listens. So, wow.
So what we found out, though, from all of our demographics of watching how you all are listening is that there's a huge range in age of people who listen to this podcast. Anybody who's from 18 to 70 plus. So today we wanted to spend some time talking about financial mistakes you can make throughout your life. So no matter what age you are, hopefully you'll find some relevance today. And not only what mistakes to make that you could make, but how you can avoid them.
Yep, how to avoid those mistakes that some of us made, probably me more so than Dusty, but I made a lot of mistakes when I was younger. So let's get started here, okay? So as everybody knows, Dusty's the fact queen. So Dusty, did you get us a few facts for this show?
Oh, of course. So according to Pocket Your Dollars, the average American spends roughly 40 to 50% more than they earn over their lifetime.
Wow, that's scary, but it seems true.
This really shocked me. And I guess when you think about it, you kind of see how that works. But we spend more than we earn.
Yeah, the majority of Americans do. Majority live paycheck to paycheck, and a lot of times they come up short before paycheck, which means they lead to using credit of all sorts.
Which explains why we do so many podcasts about credit and lending and how to protect yourself, right?
Budgeting too.
Budgeting too. All right, so I have another one for you. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, people are earning and spending the most when they are between the ages of 45 and 54. So on average, they earn $78,000 and they spend $60,000 of that. So where does that leave savings, Jamie?
You should be saving at about 20%. It doesn't look like we're making it there, are we?
No.
If we're doing it the right way, in all honesty.
And
Because not only that, we want to also invest our money. So we really should be investing 30%. So, yeah, there's a little bit of a gap there.
And so kind of what I took away from this, in just reading these two statistics is that we have a lot of debt and maybe we die with a lot of debt. I know it's morbid, but...
Never thought of it that way. Well, I guess.
I guess.
If I die and I have debt, I guess I win, right?
I don't know.
I got to keep all the stuff. I don't know. And I don't really care if you get my money when I'm dead, I guess. It's perspective. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. Because, in all honesty, when you're in your 20s, the last thing you're thinking about is when you're older and how much debt you're going to have. And am I going to die with debt? Or how much you need to save. Right. And then as we go on through your 30s and your 40s, everything changes. So we're really going to try to talk about them all today, because when we did start doing this, I always, did refer back to myself when I was younger, the things I did, the mistakes that I saw, not just myself, but family members and friends, and obviously not working in the credit union business, help out a lot of people that have made those mistakes. And so many of them come to me and say, gosh, I wish somebody would have taught me this earlier. Right. So we're going to talk about these.
We're teaching you early.
Yeah. And we're going to start with the 20s, right?
20s.
Yeah, not the roaring 20s, your 20s.
Hopefully the best years of your life, right?
I think mine are still the best.
You know what? I think every decade is kind of the best years of your life. But anyway, finances in your 20s. Here we go.
So how many do we have for this one, Dusty?
We have four mistakes that people make.
Yeah, number one is not saving for retirement. And it's like...
that seems so far away.
It does, right?
Why start now?
You go to a 20-year-old and say, you need to start putting in your investment account to save, and they look at you like you have three heads.
Or like they can't afford that because they don't make enough money yet.
They're like, get away from me, old man. What are you talking about?
Right.
But in all honesty, that's when you need to start, because with compound interest and it growing over time, if you want to be able to afford things when you're older and not have to worry as much as some people do, this is when you do it, when you start. So we've talked about this in past podcasts. This is one of the things we say, hey, as soon as you get a job or career, make sure you take advantage of that investment in that 401k.
So how old were you when you started your retirement fund?
See, this is a loaded question because she knows what I did. I worked in the restaurant industry for a little while, and I was profit sharing, and I made up a little bit of money. It wasn't much. But I quit that job and went on to become a teacher, and I got something, and I forgot about it. And I'm like, ooh, I should cash this in.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Vegas. So, yeah, it was a fun Vegas trip, but I think the company that I invested in, if I'd kept that stock, it would have doubled so many times, so I'd have a nice little nest egg.
So that's another good point, is even if you do start early, don't decide to take it out. Leave it there. I mean, you will be glad you did.
So when I officially started was when I was 26.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started with $25 per paycheck. And obviously now, as I tell everyone, try to get to 10%. So I'm at 10% now. I'm actually a little over 10%.
Excellent. So the number 2 mistake to avoid is living beyond your means. Great power in your first paycheck becomes a great responsibility. And although you're likely to be earning more than you ever have, bills and other responsibilities come before major spending or treating yourself, which is a hard one.
It's very hard, especially if you're going from, living with your parents and almost all your expenses being taken care of. And you probably are able to enjoy life and do what you want. And now all of a sudden you decide to go out and get your apartment. Well, you don't just have a rent. You've got the utilities, the groceries, everything. And a lot of times that's what we see in the 20s. And they talk about the grunge movement, and everybody from Seattle and back in the 80s, my generation or the 90s were depressed. Well, think about it. When you get thrown into your 20s, all of a sudden you have to live real life.
Your lifestyle went from way up here to reality.
Which is funny because we're talking to my daughter about that. She's talking about her apartment. I'm like, okay, yeah, the apartment's this much, but have you figured in all these other things? And all of a sudden the eyes glaze over like, what? So you've really got to think about that.
Yeah. Okay, so number 3, not learning basic budgeting and credit skills. And we talk about this stuff all the time.
Yeah, this is fundamental. You got to get back to the basics. You've got to know this.
Got to track your spending.
Right. And, those of you listening probably know this by now, but you might know somebody that doesn't. Sit them down and say, hey, we need to talk about this, because I don't want you to make mistakes in your 20s that you're going to have to pay for in your 30s or your 40s, even later in your life, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a skill that you need to learn. And, a lot of times when you say budgeting, people feel as though that's real restrictive. It's not really about being restrictive. It's about knowing where your money goes and how to manage it. And number 4, we all like to do this. We all go to college and we get college debt, and we want to avoid paying our student loans back as soon as possible. So number 4 is avoiding paying your student loans.
Which is a really bad idea, because just like the compound interest for your savings, compound interest adds up on your student loans if you're not making those payments.
Right. It's all about the idea of deferment. But the problem is, as you're deferring that, interest is accruing.
Yeah.
And, if you've already taken out a big chunk of money by going to school, I would tell you, if you're actually in college right now, start trying to pay a little bit every month just to get used to that, to put that in your budget, whether it's $25 or $50. I understand that it's tight, but trust me, once you get out and 6 months after graduation, that whole lot's going to hit you with those payments. So try not to keep deferring your loans. I know people that have been paying on student loans for 20 years, and I'm just like, wow. So yeah, try to avoid that one.
We should mention we have a guest vocalist with us today. Leo the cat has joined the 30th podcast. And now he's MIA. Anyway, if you hear him, it's Leo.
Leo the kitty.
That's right. All right, so that was our 20s.
Yep.
Now we're moving on to our 30s. Life is different.
Life is different now.
Might be married, might have kids.
Right, you've been working for a while now. You're not just getting used to having a career. Mm-hmm. You've sort of been doing it for a while. I feel like, hey, I got this, right?
Yeah, I'm moving up. I'm moving into, getting my responsibility.
Moving on up to the top. And Cece's shaking her head no.
East side.
East side, right?
Okay.
So the first thing we see is when 30-year-olds go out to buy their first house. And it's really about buying too much house, spending too much for their first house.
And that is super hard right now if you're in the housing market, because housing prices are inflated. So to say the least that you're going to probably overpay for your house is an understatement. But be watching for that, because don't overpay and don't overbuy.
Yeah, and I think the answer to that is it's your first house. And most of us don't live in our first house that long. So remember, this is your first house. And so maybe the first one you buy, you don't get everything you think you need. Or
That's
you
a
think
really
you
good
want.
point. We only lived in our first house 4 years.
So yeah, think about that. And a lot of times when you're buying, you're not thinking that way. Thinking, I want it this way. Well,
Yeah.
you're probably not going to stay in that house. You get your first when you're in your late 20s, early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So number 2 is short-term financial planning versus the idea of long-term planning. What that would mean is, we're really focused on the here and now, and like, oh, I can afford this car, and we want to have kids, and we want to have this house, but we don't see the expenses attached to that. Besides the fact that I want a child, yeah, I want kids, but the idea is you don't just say I want a child and that's it, because you've got to plan for it. You've got to realize that it's going to be very expensive in the first couple of years, because you're getting diapers and most likely formula and other things, right?
Oh, and you think that that's the expensive part.
Yeah, you think
but
that's the
it's
expensive
not.
part. Yeah, I was so excited when we got out of diapers, and we got back into diapers, and then 10 years later we got into diapers again, right?
Yeah, and daycare kicks in, and then you get into the teenage years of.
And so that's what it is about the long term. So when you start planning these things in your life, you go, okay, kids is one. Okay, so if we're gonna have children, are they going to go to private school?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to go to public school?
Are we both going to work?
Are we both going to work? Or is one going to stay and take care of the kids?
Right. Do we want to do travel sports?
Yeah. Are we going to buy their first car?
Right.
Are they going to go to college? Are we going to pay for their college? If we're going to pay for their college, we need to start putting away now in a 529. So many of us have our children, and I was guilty of this with my first one. Just going through life, and then the older they get, you go, oh my gosh, I haven't saved
planned
enough.
for anything.
Yeah, right. So it's really about making that mistake of you're only doing the short-term financial planning and not looking total long-term.
Right. So, Jamie, how much does it cost to have a kid?
Well, the last time I looked, it was about $233,000 from birth to the age 18.
So, like $13,000 a year you're going to be spending on this one child.
That's some great math skills there, Dusty. Very good. You're right.
Math is my number one skill.
Oh yeah. So so you're looking at that and you're going, okay, so we got to plan for that, but we also have to plan when we want the house, and we have the repairs, and we want this car, and we want everything, the insurance,
right.
Everything comes with it. So it's all about that long term, not just looking at the one thing you want.
And that kind of all those things kind of lead into number 3, and that is racking up credit card debt. So what happens when those things all come along and you want them, or you don't want to delay buying them, or you can't afford them? You put them on a credit card, and then so in your 30s you end up racking up more debt.
Yeah, which goes back to one of our facts at the very beginning about people spending more than they earn. Mm-hmm. So when you're in your 30s, you're like, okay, my income from my 20s into my 30s has gone up. It's going to keep going up, and hopefully it does. But you don't want to delay that gratification. And sometimes it's about stopping and delaying gratification. Example would be, hey, we should have been saving in the 529. We should have been saving on our retirement. And maybe we shouldn't have gone to Disney World so many times.
But you know what? You justify those purchases, because I've done that. Dang, we work so hard and we have so little time for each other. We're going to spend that money on that vacation, even though we can't afford it.
That's what it tends for. You go camping.
I know.
Camping.
But yeah, so don't make the mistakes we have, right?
Right. And I'm not making fun of tent camping. I'm referring to tent camping because that's what I did when I was a kid. Yeah. That's all we could afford.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Now we're on to our lovely 40s. Dusty, you know a little bit something about this. You're in your 40s by now, aren't you?
I do.
Tell us about your 40s. What kind of mistakes do
best
people make?
decade so far. Okay. We had a whole podcast about this topic in particular, keeping up with the Joneses. You move into a nice neighborhood and you're watching your neighbors and all the money that they're spending on their house and their cars and their kids and their vacations, and you go, man, we deserve that too. And so you just never stop keeping up.
I mean, I'm watching it in my neighborhood, nicer cars maybe. The one that I keep laughing about because my wife keeps saying we need to get one is a golf cart. I'm like, why do we need a golf cart? Well, if we had a golf cart, we could just drive down to the grocery store. So you want me to spend X amount of thousands of dollars on a golf cart so we could drive it down to the grocery store? Or we could just drive around the neighborhood and meet the neighbors. And I'm like, well, we could walk. That'd be cheaper, right?
And more exercise.
But the reason that is we have people in our neighborhood that have golf carts.
We do too.
I think it's laughable, but that's part of keeping up with the Joneses. Yes?
Yes.
The golf cart, right?
Yeah. All right, so this next one is one that I am certainly guilty of, at least for now, and that is avoiding putting together a will and making sure your life insurance policies fit your lifestyle.
Yeah, making sure they're up to date. You need to have that will because now you are making that money, and now you might have the children, right? And you have to have that life insurance because you are earning more, and if you have a significant other or children, if something should happen to you, you want to be able to replace your income levels, right?
That's right.
And here's the thing that sort of stinks about life insurance. it's cheaper the younger you are, and you don't think about it when you're younger. The older you get and the less healthy you are, the more expensive it becomes. So,
and you'll hopefully never need it.
Yeah.
So you're paying for something you probably never use.
And that's usually what will happen. You'll get in your 40s and you haven't gotten it, and now you realize you need it, and then you go get the quote, and you're like, what? So it's really about saying, okay, I'm going to figure out how much I can get at the least amount. This also goes back to, when you're in your job, make sure your company usually has a little bit of life insurance they offer as well. So, and then obviously the other one, as we said, was a will.
Yeah.
So to let people know what your wishes are. And number 3, retirement savings catch up versus student college costs.
So I'm 40. I didn't really do much retirement contributions when in my 20s, but now I have kids. So do I put money in my retirement fund, or do I fund my kids' college? What's your opinion?
My opinion is you do both. But if you can't do both, I am a firm believer that you need to catch up on your retirement.
And everything I've read says that too.
And you can find a way to pay for student college. There's a lot of grants out there. You just have to have your student go out and apply for them. And there's financial aid. And as a parent, I get it. We want to be able to send our kids to school and take care of it. But I'm going to tell you, they're not going to die if they have to pay for a portion of their school. It's actually going to teach them some character, and it's going to help them out in their 20s and their 30s because they've already become used to such things.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the 50s and 60s.
Hey!
Now we're in Jamie's age category.
Yeah. Yep. You guys have all seen
right.
the pictures. You know I'm not 50. I'm 60.
All right, so
50s and 60s. Here
what
we
should
go.
you do? Not do.
Yeah, we see so many people do this. The one is dipping into your retirement too early. You decide, I've worked enough, and I'm 62, and I can get my Social Security now, and I'm going to retire and get my Social Security, and I'm going to dip into my retirement, and because I'm going to enjoy it. And then what happens is you're out of money within the next 8 to 10 years because you haven't sat down and looked at how long that goes.
Yeah, I mean, any investment advisor will really talk to you, sit you down and talk to you about how long are you going to live. And, for us now, your retirement in your 60s could be 20, 25 more years. What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? And then budgeting based on what your retirement savings is. But not going through that process and having that conversation is a bad idea, because that's exactly what's going to happen if you don't do that, is spend too much too early.
Too much too early.
And then you're going to be going back to work at 75.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
And in all honesty, the other thing you've got to look at, not just besides the fact you're dipping into your retirement for living, you've got to look at healthcare costs. Mm-hmm. Because you can't get Medicare until you're 65. So from the time 62 to 65, you're going to have to find a way to supplement insurance. And if something happens and you need surgery, it's going to be very expensive. Yeah. And now you're already using your retirement account. So yeah, definitely take your time, sit down with somebody, sit down with an expert, go over that, and make sure you've got that. Now, some of us might have enough money at 62 to retire, but
the majority of us don't. Not anymore. And the second one is kind of tied to that, but underestimating your cost in retirement. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, retirement costs are $50,000 per year, or $4,200 a month. So if you're looking at your nest egg going, okay, $4,200 a month, 30 years, that's how much money you need.
I'm sort of shaking my head at this because it's sort of like we're going back to our 20s when we first got all of our bills, because we're sort of going back to it now because we're on a limited income. And we really need to go through and budget that again. Remember the first time we did it, it shocked us. But now we've got to do it
all
because
over again.
Our income's not going to keep going up. It's probably going to stay the same or go down. So, yeah. Number 3 is actually using your retirement money while you're still working before you retire. When you start dipping into that and taking, because I need to buy this, I need to buy that. And you don't have enough time to repay it and for it to grow. So try not to get in there, in your 50s, because you start getting into it, but there's going to be penalties, right?
I mean, I know people that they're buying a second home somewhere and they're going to dip into their retirement savings to purchase that home. Not a good idea, because you're not going to recoup that money lost before you retire.
No, you're not. You're going to miss out on that.
And you're going to pay penalties.
Penalties as well. Taxes, penalties.
Yep,
right.
all that. Yeah.
Number 4.
And then number 4, not understanding your Social Security and Medicare options. And honestly, this is something my parents have gone through recently, both with Social Security and Medicare. But, the government doesn't always make things easy. And so understanding what your options are and knowing when to draw based on your situation is huge in making sure you get the most money.
Yeah, the point of this podcast is to talk about financial literacy. And, when you get in your 60s, you don't want to have to go ask somebody But this is very important because the government's not going to come to you and knock on your door and go, okay, it's time for you to retire. Here's everything. This is how it works. You're really going to have to go out and look for that educational piece. Look for somebody that can help you with that. And I know at times it's hard because you think, okay, maybe they're going to take advantage of me. But do go out there and look. And there's all kinds of free resources.
Tons of free resources to help you make those best decisions.
Right.
So really, when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter what stage you are in life. There are always financial mistakes that we make because we're human, and that's just part of life.
But well, you always think when you get older, you'll know more, right?
Right.
And that's true. But as you get older, there's new challenges that are different than before, and having to get that education and learn and reach out to somebody and getting that.
And what you said earlier about when you're in your 50s and 60s makes sense no matter what stage you are in life. If you need help with a financial decision, don't feel like you're in it alone. Talk to your local credit union, talk to Financial Center. There are people like Jamie at any institution that will help you make good financial decisions.
That's right. So, 30th episode.
30th episode.
And I think Leo
is so excited about this episode.
He's like, 30. That's what he's saying in cat language. So, 30 episodes, over 10,000 listens. Thank you, everyone, so much. We appreciate it.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Carpe Dime is presented by Financial Center First Credit Union. It's produced by Jamie Davidson, Dusty Simmons, and Courtney Cooper. Financial Center is a 7-time national award winner in the category of adult financial literacy, and our goal is to
improve your financial life, in all honesty.
To learn more, visit fcfcu.com. And if you like what you hear, where can they find us?
You can go to iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and the All Indiana Podcast Network. So you just go Carpe Dime, check us out. Love to hear you. Or love to have you hear us. So I want to thank everybody for listening. This is our 30th episode, and actually it's Dusty's last episode.
Sadly, yes.
Sadly, it's her last episode. She's moving on to different things. Mm-hmm. And this was her baby, her brainchild. I want to thank her for thinking about it and pushing me to do this with her. And just want to let all of our listeners know Carpe Dime will continue on, but it'll probably just be me, and then we'll have the new hostess, or a new host that goes with, a co-host, I should say. So thank you for listening, and Dusty, thank you so much. Don't cry. Nobody cries in baseball. There's no crying in baseball. But would you like to say anything else? She shook her head no. She said thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, everyone.